Today, we are digging into a huge Supreme Court decision out of India. And really, it gets to the heart of a massive democratic dilemma. Where do you draw the line between national security and personal liberty? It's a tough question. And the answer, well, it starts with a story that's been unfolding for years.
Everything kicks off with this one simple number, 5. More than 5 years. That's how long someone has been sitting in a jail cell, waiting for a trial that hasn't even started. And look, this isn't just a number on a slide. It's a real person's life on hold, and it's at the center of a legal fight that has rocked the very foundations of Indian law.
And here's the human cost, right here in these words from student activist Umar Khalid. Jail is my life now. That just hits you, doesn't it? It really captures the incredible personal stakes of the court case we're about to break down.
So to really get what's going on, we have to go back to February 2020. Terrible riots broke out in northeast Delhi, and at least 53 people died. In the chaos that followed, the police arrested Umar Khalid. They claimed he was a major player in a larger conspiracy behind all the violence. And he's been in prison ever since.
Okay, so you might be wondering, what law even makes that possible? How can somebody be locked up for years without a trial ever kicking off? Well, the answer lies in this incredibly powerful and, honestly, very controversial law, the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, better known as the UAPA.
So, the UAPA is the main anti-terror law in India. On paper, it's there to fight anything that threatens the country's security and unity. But the way it works, especially when it comes to getting bail, is a whole different ballgame compared to regular criminal law.
And this right here is the biggest difference. Normally in criminal law, the idea is bail, not jail. You're innocent until proven guilty, right? Well, the UAPA pretty much flips that on its head. Under this law, getting bail is the rare exception, not the rule. The court's #1 priority shifts from your individual freedom to national security.
Now, there are two parts of this law that are just absolutely crucial here. First, there's the part that defines what a terrorist act even is. But the real kicker is the section about bail. It says a court has to deny bail if the prosecution's evidence, just on the surface, makes the accusation look true. There's no cross-examination or deep dive at this point. That makes it an incredibly tough, almost impossible hurdle for an accused person to clear.
So, after all these years of legal battles, the case finally makes its way to the highest court in the land, India's Supreme Court. And in January 2026, they hand down their verdict. And, believe me, this decision wasn't just about the fate of the accused. It was set to redraw the map for what protest and dissent even mean in India. What's really interesting is that the court didn't just give one simple answer. It actually drew a very clear line. Umar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam, no bail. The court said the initial evidence suggested they were at the center of the planning. But then, 5 others, including Gulfisha Fatima, were actually granted bail. Why? Because the court felt the evidence against them and the roles they allegedly played were just different. That distinction is so important.
But let's be clear, for those who got bail, freedom comes with a lot of strings attached. They're facing some seriously strict conditions. They can't travel freely, they're forbidden from talking to the media, and they even have to be tracked with GPS 24/7. It's a stark reminder of just how tight the UAPA's grip is, even when you do get bail.
But this whole verdict was about so much more than just bail. Honestly, its biggest, most lasting impact might be how the court chose to interpret the law itself, because in doing so, it basically expanded the very definition of what counts as a terrorist act.
You know, when most of us hear the word terrorism, we think of very specific things, right? Bombs, guns, acts of direct violence. And for a long time, that's pretty much been the legal understanding too.
But the court pushed that definition way, way further. Its new interpretation says terrorism can also include things that aren't violent in that classic sense. Instead, it can cover actions that are just designed to cause massive disruption and bring normal life to a grinding halt.
And the court gave a very specific example. A chakka jam. That's a form of protest where you block major roads. The judges said that if an act like this is part of a larger plan to paralyze a city and threaten civic stability, it could now be considered a terrorist act under the UAPA. I mean, that is a huge shift in how this law can be used.
So as you can probably guess, a ruling this big has just thrown fuel on an already raging national debate. It brings us right back to that fundamental clash, the power of the government versus the rights of its citizens. The court was very clear in its reasoning. They flat out rejected the idea that just because someone has been in jail for 5 years, they should automatically get bail under the UAPA.
For the court, what mattered more was the strength of the prosecution's initial case, not how much time had passed.
But on the other side of this, civil liberties groups are raising the alarm. They're arguing that this verdict creates a dangerous precedent. They fear it could be used to label any form of legitimate protest or dissent as terrorism, effectively criminalizing it.
So, after all that, what are the big takeaways? Well, they're massive. First, the definition of a terrorist act in India has just gotten a lot broader, now including nonviolent disruptions. Second, the court has doubled down on the UAPA's super strict bail rules. This ruling also sets a powerful, and some would say chilling, precedent for any future protest movements. And finally, it just intensifies this already fierce debate about the place of anti-terror laws in a democratic country. And that leaves us with this one really fundamental question. As that line between what's considered a protest and what's considered terrorism gets blurrier and blurrier, and as time in jail without a trial stretches into years, you just have to ask, in the name of security, is India fundamentally redefining what it means to disagree? What do you think?